This month, my goal was to figure out how to separate the demo and how to easily package for a demo or for the full game. Figuring this out really changed how nice it is to work on the demo and how fast the map loads, how fast I can start playing in the editor. And I really wanted to share because there really isn't that much information on how people have set up their demo in Unreal Engine. So I kind of wanted to start that ball, and I'm very curious how you or your team set this up. I hope that my setup will help you with your game. I focus on just having a very clean demo. At the base, the most important thing is that I now have another map that I duplicated, and I got rid of anything that I don't want to have in the demo. This kind of also gets rid of some worry that if someone has the demo, they can somehow unlock the rest of the game, because in this way, the rest of the game simply won't exist. So the first thing I wanted to set up is to have a different build target for the demo. So whenever you click on your platform and you want to package, I used to not have this one here. So yeah, I just created a new build target. And my first goal was to have just a bool for is demo, that target would set to true or just have it even exist. And then I could, in my code, in my UI, in my map, I could just ask the game, hey, are you a demo? And then choose, let's say, to have the wishlist button. And one thing I couldn't figure out was how to exclude parts of the map, but having a separate map fixed that part. And then I still use that bool. So yeah, first I will show how I added that build target. I wasn't that familiar with it. I had already created one in the past, but I couldn't remember how I did it. I'll take you through the steps. I saw that all the build targets are in pretty much the main folder. So there's a Portobello's game target, and I just duplicated that and I called it Portobello's game demo target. And then what's important here is you have to make sure that the name of your class, it matches up with the file name, and that is in the Unreal documentation. And then I just made sure to inherit from the Lyra game target. I am using Lyra, so I get to get all of those predefined awesome goodies. And in this case, I think pretty much this one just like disables some plugins, enables other plugins, and there's more in it that I have yet to learn. But yeah, you can see here that I added a variable. So is demo equals 1. That was ready for me to add code to get this value. Pretty much if it exists and if it's true, then yes, we want to be the demo. But the first challenge I ran into was that I rebuilt this and I thought this would automatically show up in this list, but I had to go find out where it got that list. And then I stumbled upon where it found it, and it's essentially into a JSON file, and it's an intermediate file. So it pulls that array or that information in your intermediate folder and then target info JSON file. And when I opened up, that's when I saw all of the different targets. But for now, this was the only one that existed. And then also just Lyra game. This one wasn't there yet. What I ended up doing is I deleted the whole intermediate folder and I just rebuilt everything. Maybe I could have just deleted that target info file. It didn't take too long for me. And then it popped up. Yay, this took me way too long to figure out. Okay, so then I had this variable here. And I added a nice static function inside a blueprint function library. Essentially, all that does is it checks if this, I think it's a predefined macro. I think that's the name. Please correct me if I'm wrong. So essentially, if this is defined and if it's true, then I return true. And then I also added some cheats so that in the editor, I could see what it looks like when it is true. And then otherwise, just return false. For an example of when I'm using the bool flag. So I have this little widget at the bottom right of the screen for build configuration. For now, I just have a demo version. I just call isDemo. So that's my static blueprint callable function. And then based on that, I set the visibility of the widget itself. What I could do is maybe I would have a different one for a build. Maybe it just shows up in the main menu. It's nice to be able to call that from anywhere. This function I could call from Blueprint, and I was starting to use everywhere. But not long after just doing that, I realized how unmaintainable it would be to just have all the game logic, how to handle that in a single map. And there's some differences too that we wanted, like blocking off some areas for the demo and having a different shop inventory for the demo versus the game. So yeah, that led me to just decide to have a different map for the demo. The next challenge would be the organization. How would the demo build know which map to start and which map to cook? So this part I was inspired by the way that Lyra handles its experiences and loading certain maps. My equivalent to shooter maps content is just my own plugin called Portobello's Map Content. And I kind of copied the same folder structure. And you can see that I already have this hub world definition, which loads the map that has the full game. And you can see that it has this nice bowl for its default experience. And Lyra's quick play button, it basically just loads whatever is set to is a default experience. So I decided to do that for the demo. So I created a new demo definition so that one loads the demo map. And then I set is default experience to true also. So now the challenge was, okay, well, if they both are the default experience, then what happens? And how do I make sure that the full game doesn't have the demo logic or definitions or map, and the demo doesn't have the full game's map and definition? So this is where a custom configuration file came in, just to set up what maps I do not want to cook. I saw that in the project settings, in the packaging section, if you scroll all the way down, you can see that there is a directories to never cook. I thought, oh, okay, well, that is super useful. So I could have either gone and done a list of things to include, but I decided to just use basically, okay, this is what I don't want to cook. And at first, I was changing it before every package game. So I would pretty much change it here and then package for the demo and whatnot. But that was not ideal, especially if at some point I'll be updating the demo and the game. I actually found out about custom configuration files, and it helped me to see that Lyra was already using that for its Epic Online services. So at least I had one example. In my target file, I just set the custom config to demo. In the Portobello's game target, I set it to release. This string, it corresponds to the name of the folder. If you go up in your project directory, it's under config, under custom, then you can have custom configuration files that will match up to this build's custom config. So in the case of the demo, this would be the folder, and all of these configuration files would override some settings. So in my case, the only thing I cared about was these directories to exclude. So this is the one for the demo. So I essentially just exclude anything that has to do with a release folder. And I pretty much had to reorganize the folders and move the maps, and it took a while because of one actor per file and all the actors I had in it. So it would have been nice to set this up earlier. Which is why I'm happy I'm sharing this if it can save you time. And the release one, it just excludes all of the demo folders. Yeah, so I'm just focused on excluding certain experiences and certain maps, but I'm sure there's other stuff I could exclude. The other thing I had to set to true is the override build environment. I knew to put this because without it, it was throwing this warning here. So it was saying that it modifies the value of properties. What is it? I guess the generate collections. This is not allowed as it has a build product in common with Unreal Game. So I kind of Googled this, and honestly, I am not too sure yet why this happened and why it's needed. It might have to do with the fact that I'm using a distributed version of Unreal. I'm not building from source, but this allowed this to work. Okay, sweet. So now that I had this, I was all excited and I went to platforms, I went to build the demo. The map was still the main map. Didn't seem like it did anything from that custom file. So just to show, my folder structure for the system playlist is like this. So there's now a demo and a release folder, and based on which one it is, it will occlude the other. And it's the same thing for my maps. So I have a release and a demo folder. It seemed like I hit another wall. I couldn't really understand why that custom config file was doing what it was doing. I kind of looked at the packaging logs and everything was cooking, and then it was applying the custom configuration. I was wondering, okay, well, is it just supposed to affect something after the cook? But then I learned about the project launcher. And honestly, up to this moment, I had just been using the Windows and then package project and then just choosing the build target that I wanted. So I wasn't really familiar with the project launcher, and there isn't that much information about it online. I was really amazed that how come, I don't know, I must have missed this somewhere. At first I tried, okay, the default build target, the demo, and then showing advanced. It wasn't giving me enough information. I launched it and it had the same problem. But then I learned about these custom launch profiles. And it essentially lets you really pick and choose what you want out of your package build. I'm missing 2 other ones here, but my goal is to have a profile for the demo development, demo shipping, and then the full game development and full game shipping, and set them up really nicely so that I can just launch the profile and it will package for me with the correct settings. I won't need to, change this every time and then do that. I'll just show my details for my demo development windows, what settings worked for me. If I go ahead and edit that profile, I just choose the Portobello's Game Demo build target, and I didn't do anything here. And then I decided to cook the content by the book. So I just chose Windows. And the cooked cultures, I think I just chose English. Yeah, English. Yeah, to be honest, I looked at the manifest file and I can see that it cooked all of these cultures. And honestly, for now, I'll just probably support French and English because I know both of these languages. The other languages were contained already from Lyra, so I'll have to look into that. And then the cook map, I was wondering, that would be amazing if I could just pick and choose directly here. I wouldn't even need that build configuration file. But unfortunately, I don't think it reads from any plugins. And in the setup, Lyra's setup, all the maps are inside of a gameplay feature plugin, so it wasn't showing up here. And also, one thing that I found out that was kind of interesting is that I don't think it respected what I chose. I can see that it cooks the Lyra front end. It also cooked the default editor overview, but it also didn't cook all the other ones. So it might be the way I have my project set up. Maybe I have some developer maps, but yeah, I wouldn't trust this too much yet. Yeah, and then if I continue, I haven't released yet, so this will be very interesting for that time. And I welcome any information you might have on this. And then the advanced settings, I had to play a lot with this. There was one time it wasn't including the right data. So I would start the package game and it would just tell me, oh, you're missing audio device for Bing, and I forget exactly what else. That was a scary one. Basically, I tried to keep my cooks a little short and to compress the content so that it's not 23 gigs instead of 2 gigs. And I still have a lot to learn about chunks and just reducing the file of my project, so I can't really go too much into detail here, but this worked for me. And then I wasn't sure what this was, and then I chose development, and the magic here, or what made it work to respect what that custom configuration was saying, is this line here. So custom config equals demo. So this allowed me to add additional cooker options so that me telling the game to occlude that folder actually is respected. And then I decided to also package and store locally because I want to keep as many builds as I can. And I also included an installer for prerequisites of package games and try to make it optimize. I have a lot to learn here. But this was important for putting it on the Steam Deck. So then whenever I choose to run in compatibility mode and with Proton, it would prompt me to install whatever I need for it to work on the Steam Deck. And then I haven't played too much with archive or deploy or launch. But yeah, those are my settings. And if I go back, then all I need to do is click on launch this profile, and then it would save here. And it saves as just a Windows folder. So what I do is I just create a new folder with the date and the iteration number, and I just put it inside of that. And I make sure to save the logs as well. And then it makes this executable. And one of the gotchas is that the exe name is the name of your target file. If you're putting this on a Steam Deck, just make sure to remember that the exe name is different and not to freak out and think that it's just busted. And as a warning, earlier builds and earlier cooks, they took really long. The longest it took was 11 hours. So I'd recommend running it at night or trying to delete what you don't need. I still have a lot to cut or to figure out for project size, especially when it comes to shaders and textures. So my build right now is 2.80 gigs, so that's pretty big for the demo. So there's a lot still that can be cut. Okay, so now for a few gotchas. When I decided to duplicate or to copy over my map, at first I just used copy and then paste. And then I saw that because it's a world partition, for some reason, none of the one actor per file had been copied over. At first I tried to maybe like copy paste specific actors, just so I wouldn't have to delete anything, but that was kind of a nightmare. So I just went ahead and deleted that. Deleting and copying that many assets, oh, it was so slow. Yeah, it's better to avoid that. But what actually worked was to duplicate the map. So I just duplicated it in place, and then I moved it over to the demo folder. And duplicating worked. It duplicated the HLOD layers. The sequence, I still had it in the maps folder. But essentially, I think the duplicate just makes sure that the correct world partition commandlet is called, but copy just doesn't work at all. It was something to keep in mind. And another thing to consider is that your duplicated level, it might still use the old HLOD layers, which technically don't exist in this setup, right? Because we don't cook them. So you got to make sure to rename these and whatever HLOD layers you might have, and then set them up in your world setting. So I just like duplicated and set them up, and a lot of the actors that were using specific HLOD layers, I had to go ahead and replace it. So any of them that were using the layer demo basic, I just got rid of the HLOD layer reference because it would use the default HLOD layer if it says, yes, use layers, if that bool is on. And one thing that took a long time but was kind of therapeutic was to delete all of the actors and landscape that I didn't need in the demo, that either won't be seen or that is not reachable. That took a long time, but it made me appreciate the work of my artist and see some parts of the game I hadn't even seen before. So that was awesome. Another thing to consider is your level sequences. They might have some bindings, and they might refer to actors that are in the other map. So I made sure to duplicate. I don't have too many level sequences that use bindable or possessable actors. So this is the first one I did. And for all the reference, I just had to update the referred actor. And I learned that it's pretty nice and easy to replace those references. The biggest gain into doing this whole setup is definitely the iteration time. So now for the demo, whenever I iterate or I do an optimization, it's on a smaller scale, so it's faster to do these optimization and to learn and to test. It used to take me about 30 seconds after hitting play in the editor for the bigger map. Also, just loading the map would take I think a few minutes. So yeah, I actually started to make some level packed actors. I think those are things that I could copy over to the other map pretty nicely. And just in general, digging in and making sure that we're setting up our map the right way, what kind of optimizations we need. It's much more manageable in a smaller scope and a smaller map. And I gotta say, our demo is progressing really well. It's a huge boost to motivation as well. It's also easy to add logic and content that's different for the demo versus the full game. So that'll give extra fun, extra reason to, play the demo and then still play the game. And it won't just be a repetition. Another advantage of having a different build target for demo is that you could also toggle off or on certain plugins. So in the example of the Lyra game target, you can see that it's possible to disable some plugins. Depending on how you want to set up your game, maybe your demo could be all of a gameplay feature plugin. Also, if there's like functionality that you already have as part of a plugin, let's say you have maybe something seasonal, like you have like the Christmas season cosmetics, maybe you could disable that for your demo. There's more control over what you want and don't want in a demo. And now I feel like we're really equipped to have a demo and test out really soon, and we have some plans to do so. I guess the only downside is that whatever nice changes we do to this map, we'll need to duplicate it over to the full map, but it's a compromise that we're happy with. There's so much more to gain from this setup than to lose. So yeah, I'm curious, how are you setting up your demo? Are you using a different Git branch? Do you have a lot of ifs if you're a demo? So yeah, please share in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope that this is helpful to you. And I want to really thank my Patreons for their support, and I'll see you in the next video.